All right, so let's dive into a deep dive on something that I think we've all thought about at some point, the relationship boundaries.
Yeah.
Um, we're going to take a look at a post from Reddit's Ask Men Advice forum, where a guy's asking for advice about his girlfriend,
Mm-hmm.
spending nights at her male friend's place.
Oh, yeah, this is a good one. What I think is so interesting about this one is just the sheer volume of responses, and almost all of them are negative.
Yeah,
And it really kind of goes beyond just giving advice. I think it tacks into something really deeply ingrained in a lot of people about loyalty and exclusivity
right.
in romantic relationships.
It's like we all have these unspoken relationship rule books or something
Right.
that no one ever really talks about directly.
Well, exactly.
So, to set the stage, the original poster is saying that his girlfriend is staying over at her male friend's place pretty regularly,
Okay.
not just like a one-off emergency or something like that.
Yeah.
And she says they sleep in separate beds and they've known each other for a year or two.
Mm-hmm.
And then he added a detail that I think really got people riled up.
Oh, really?
She told him she became friends with this guy because he wasn't giving her as much attention as other men at first.
Oh, so it's like a challenge or something.
Yeah, almost like a challenge.
Wow.
And it makes you wonder if some of the mouths on this forum are reacting based on their own, experiences.
Yeah, their own dating experiences.
But it's the near universal disapproval that is just so striking.
Mm-hmm.
Almost all the commenters are telling him to break up with her. They're seeing this as just blatant disrespect and a breach of trust.
Yeah.
A lot of them are saying it's a possible sign of cheating.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are pretty harsh. Like one commenter said, she's better take her bags because she is staying there now.
Wow.
Another one said, you are now in an open relationship.
Oof. That's...
Like they're not holding back.
No, they are not. And, I think this really brings up that primal fear of infidelity for a lot of people. I think you can really sense the anxiety in a lot of these responses.
Yeah.
It's like they all have this collective insecurity that they could lose their partner to someone else.
Right. And it's not always about actual infidelity, right?
Right.
It's about the potential for it.
The potential. That's it. And another thing is a lot of people are focusing on the optics of the situation.
Yeah, even if nothing physical is happening.
Right. It's that old saying,
Right.
where there's smoke, there's fire.
Exactly.
So they're basically saying that even if it's totally innocent, it just doesn't look good.
Yeah.
And it disrespects the relationship.
Which is really interesting because then it makes you wonder how much of what we consider cheating is based on actions versus perceptions.
Right.
It's a very gray area.
Absolutely.
But, the original poster actually said in a follow-up comment that he ended the relationship. He said he was too in love and she wasn't willing to change her behavior.
That's heartbreaking. But, it really underscores how personal boundaries are.
Mm-hmm.
What one person sees as harmless, another person could see as complete deal breaker.
Yeah.
And a lot of times those boundaries aren't even spoken.
Right.
Which is where communication becomes super important.
Yeah.
So, this really throws a spotlight on unspoken expectations in relationships.
Yeah.
We just assume that our partners are on the same page about what's okay and what's not.
Right.
But, this Reddit thread is a perfect example of how that can totally backfire.
It's like we expect our partners to be mind readers or something.
Right.
Which is totally unrealistic, of course.
Yeah.
And then you add in all the complications of social media and technology.
Right.
Like back in the day, you could really only spend the night at someone's house if there was a snowstorm or something.
No, true.
But now with ride-sharing apps, and you can get in touch with anyone at any time,
Mm-hmm.
it's so much easier to just go home.
Yeah.
So are those old expectations even valid anymore?
It's a good question. And it really speaks to how societal norms and technology are changing the way we think about relationships. Like what might have been completely unacceptable a generation ago might be more commonplace today.
Yeah.
But even with all these changes, I think the core issue remains the same.
Which is
The need for open and honest communication.
because even if those expectations are evolving, they're still there,
Right.
just simmering beneath the surface.
Mm-hmm.
And if we don't talk about them directly, it can lead to resentment, jealousy,
Oh, yeah.
all sorts of unnecessary drama,
Exactly. And that's where I think this Reddit thread actually offers a valuable lesson.
even if the reactions are extreme.
Yeah, even if they're a little bit extreme.
It's a good reminder to have those conversations with your partner before a situation like this even comes up.
Exactly.
Like, hey, how would you feel if I spent the night at so-and-so's place?
Right.
It's so much better to address these things proactively than to wait for a conflict to blow up.
I agree. It's about being proactive, not reactive. And, it's not just about hurting boundaries. It's also about understanding your partner's perspective.
Right?
And finding a compromise that works for both of you.
Like maybe spending the night at this guy's place is not negotiable for her,
Yeah,
but she's willing to check in more frequently or,
exactly.
do something else to address his concerns.
It's all about finding that balance between individual needs
Hmm.
and maintaining that trust and security in the relationship.
And sometimes that takes creative problem solving and flexibility.
Absolutely.
But let's be real. These conversations can be tough.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
How do you bring up a sensitive topic like this without making your partner feel like you're accusing them
Right.
or trying to control them?
Well, I think that's where communication skills really come in. It's about framing the conversation in a way that feels safe and collaborative.
Hmm.
So instead of saying, you can't do this,
Right.
try something like, hey, I'm feeling a little uneasy about this situation. I'd love to talk about it so we can both feel good about it.
Mhm.
It's about expressing your feelings and your needs without placing blame.
That makes sense. And that's where I think things got a little heated on that Reddit thread.
Yeah.
A lot of those comments were coming from a place of anger and judgment,
Right.
which doesn't exactly lead to productive communication.
No, not at all. And it's important to remember that those commenters are only seeing a tiny piece of the story.
Right.
They don't know the full context of this relationship or who these people really are.
Mhm.
So their reactions might be understandable,
Yeah.
but they're not necessarily the best example of how to communicate in a healthy way.
They're basically jumping to conclusions based on their own biases and experiences.
Exactly. And that can be dangerous because it just shuts down any possibility of real dialogue and
Mhm.
understanding.
So it's not just about absorbing information. It's about thinking critically,
Yes.
taking a step back and saying, does this actually resonate with me?
Right.
Does this align with my own values and experiences?
Exactly. And if something feels off, trust your gut.
Yeah,
Don't be afraid to question those universal truths,
right.
especially when it comes to something as personal as relationships.
It's like, take what you need and leave the rest.
I love that.
There's definitely wisdom to be found in these online discussions, but we have to be careful about what we take away from them.
We do. And that discernment comes from self-awareness.
Okay.
Knowing yourself, your value, your needs, your boundaries.
Right.
That's the key to navigating all kinds of relationships.
Yeah, not just romantic ones.
Exactly.
So before we move on, I just want to remind everyone to like and subscribe to Shauna Polich on YouTube for more conversations like this.
Yes, please do.
We're so passionate about exploring these topics
We are.
and helping you navigate all the ups and downs of life.
Absolutely. And we're so grateful for your support.
Yeah.
We love hearing from you.
Mhm.
So be sure to leave a comment on the channel and let us know what resonated with you from today's discussion.
Yeah, what's your take on this whole situation? I mean, so we've gone pretty in-depth on this whole Reddit thing. But what I'm really wondering is, what can we, the listeners, actually take away from this?
Right. How do we apply this to our own lives?
Exactly.
Well, I think, this situation is kind of like a case study.
Okay.
It shows us how these dynamics can play out
Yeah.
in a really real way. And it makes us think about our own beliefs, about
So-
trust and loyalty and what's acceptable in a relationship.
And it also shows how social media can make these issues different bigger.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's like it creates this echo chamber
Right.
where the most extreme viewpoints just take over.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught in all the outrage and forget about the nuances.
Exactly.
So, online forums, they're great for getting different perspectives.
Yeah.
But they don't always show the whole picture
Right.
of real-life relationships.
So we have to be careful about taking everything we read online as gospel.
Exactly. It's not just about taking in information. It's about thinking critically.
Right, like, does this actually apply to my life? Does this fit with my own values, my own experiences?
And if something feels wrong, trust your gut.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to question those things that everyone says is true,
Right.
especially when it comes to relationships.
Like, take what you need and leave the rest.
I love
Yeah,
that.
that's-
That's so perfect.
Because there's definitely good stuff in there,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to be picky.
And that's where self-awareness comes in.
Okay.
Knowing yourself, your values, your needs, your boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
that's the key to having good relationships.
With everyone.
Yeah, with everyone, not just romantic partners.
And you know what? That brings up another really important point.
What's that?
Self-trust.
Oh, yeah, it's huge.
Do you trust yourself to make good decisions,
Mm-hmm.
to communicate your needs,
Right.
to walk away from situations that aren't healthy for you?
Those are important questions, and that goes beyond just relationships. It's
Yeah.
about trusting your own judgment.
Your intuition.
Exactly.
Because at the end of the day, self-trust is the foundation for everything.
It's how we build good relationships,
Yeah.
make smart choices,
Mhm.
and handle all the complicated stuff that life throws at us.
Well said. And on that note, we want to thank you for joining us for this deep dive into relationship boundaries.
Yeah, thank you so much.
We hope this conversation has given you some food for thought.
Yeah.
Maybe even inspired some important conversations with the people you care about.
Absolutely.
And before we go, we want to remind you to subscribe to Voices of the Soul right here on Shauna Polish's YouTube channel.
Please do.
We love exploring these kinds of topics.
We do.
And creating a space for open and honest dialogue.
It's so important.
So hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join our amazing community of listeners who are all about personal growth and connecting with each other.
We're so glad to have you here.
And until next time, keep asking those tough questions.
Yeah.
Keep challenging those assumptions.
Absolutely.
And keep working towards deeper, more fulfilling relationships in every area of your life.
That's what it's all about. It's a model